Greetings and welcome back to Room 303 in our Talks with Walt, as we are calling our readings to the deathbed edition of Walt Whitman's Leaves of Grass. We are in poem number 7 of the 11 poems of the Sea Drift section of Leaves of Grass. And we turn now to a little poem called The World Below the Brine. And I will forgive one or two of you for your smiles because, of course, some of you were raised on a Disney film called Little Mermaid, where Under the Sea was one of the favorite songs. Now, our assumption here is that you've been with us at LearnStrong.net, down that left-hand side, Talks with Walt, our playlist, and I hope that you've been with us ever since the opening lines of Inscription, all the way up through and including the introduction set of comments for Sea Drift, and then the Beach at Night poem that we just finished. Now, our Nortons will tell us a little bit about Brine, number 16 of the Leaves of Grass group of the 1860 edition, number 4 of a group of the same name in 1867. The poem received its present title in 1871 when it was placed in the Seashore Memories group of Passage to India. And then in one manuscript, it's simply headed Leaf. In 1881, it was transferred to its present position. Now, I just want to point out in this poem that this is one of those classic examples of a poem that seems so unbelievably simple, and yet I want to point out there's some very interesting things happening. We're going to move from the bottom of the sea to the surface of the ocean. We're going to go from grass at the bottom to animal and marine life to finally human swimmers, and the observations that will be made along the way are quite remarkable. Let's just enjoy the poem now. The world below the brine. Forests at the bottom of the sea, the branches and leaves, and obviously we're smiling that Leaves of Grass, it's the title of this collection of poems. Notice forests. Immediately we think of Shelley's Ode to the West Wind, Passage 3. We've given full lectures on it at LearnStrong.net. You can go find that one as he's talking about what he sees, the oozy and the sea lettuce, vast lichens, obviously we're back to grass, strange flowers and seeds, emphasis on the word strange, the world below the ocean surface, the thick tangle, openings, and pink turf. Notice all the colors that Whitman's always playing with in Leaves of Grass. Different colors, pale gray and green, purple, white, and gold. The play of light, only time in all of Leaves of Grass that phrase is used. The play of light through the water. Of course, play of light will become a popular phrase later, right? Dumb swimmers there among the rocks. And here by dumb, silent. So he's trying to capture the silence under the water. Among the rocks, coral, gluten, grass. We're back to it again one more time. Rushes and the ailment of the swimmers. And again, we'll come back to swimmers here in a little bit of a different kind. Sluggish existences grazing there, suspended or slowly crawling close to the bottom. Again, notice how he puts together sounds, crawling close to the bottom. Now from there, we move up. And those of us that enjoy any kind of snorkeling or deep sea diving, we love a poem like this because we love how he moves from the very depths up, up, up. The Sperm Whale. Think about Moby Dick being published in 1851, this poem being written in 1860, right? The sperm whale at the surface blowing air and spray or disporting with his flukes. The laden-eyed shark. It's really interesting, laden-eyed, the way he creates this amazing adjective. The laden-eyed shark, the walrus, the turtle, the hairy sea leopard, and the stingray. And of course, this immediately takes us back to Song of Myself 32. I think I could turn and live with the animals, no doubt, right? Passions there, wars, pursuits, tribes, sight in those ocean depths, breathing that thick, breathing air as so many do. Then the change, thence to the sight here, to the subtle air breathed by beings like us who walk this sphere. And then second time of change. And obviously we're playing around with his own rendering of Darwinian evolution, just to remember that Origin of Species by Darwin, published in 1859, again 1 year before this poem is to receive its first publishing. The change onward from ours to that of beings who walk other spheres. And there was a lot made at the time and still about this idea of sphere and spheres. Obviously, we've got some Platonic stuff going on here. Can we even say it's some Neoplatonism possibly in the great chain of being from Plotinus on? That is to say, at 2a, what's the real argument of this poem? Life is always evolving. In the same way that humans are evolving, in the same way that we have bodies, minds, and souls, or spirits, or consciousness, or whatever you want to call it, the world below the surface of the ocean, below the surface of the brine, this world is also constantly evolving. Of course, for Darwin, so much of life will originate from under the water, right? At 2b, again, notice the brilliant movement from down to up. We think, of course, of Plato and the Republic and the opening lines of Republic. I went down to the Piraeus. You can find those lectures at learnstrong.net. Dimensionality is always important when we're reading our Plato. At 3a, I just mentioned Plato. Obviously, Plotinus comes to mind. There's been a lot of thought that maybe some of what he's referencing here came from his study of John Locke, who was playing similar kinds of game with this idea of the great chain of being. We mentioned Melville and Darwin as well. Finally, at 3b, what are your thoughts about the whole notion of humans as evolving? And we're not just talking about the origination stories or myths, but rather we're also talking about humans as we evolve, as we progress. Do you think, in fact, that we will someday walk other spheres? And do you think that it is true that as you are moving through this study of Leaves of Grass, you are learning how to walk other spheres? And then finally, do you have hope or optimism for the human species and maybe the idea that we will all together walk other spheres? Now from here we'll move to the next poem, On the Beach at Night Alone, which will sound very much like a preceding poem, and what we sometimes call the quote-unquote all poem. You'll see what I mean here in a few moments. Thank you.